Hello and welcome everyone to this fourth day of DevOps training. Myself Havijit and a very good morning or good evening to you all based on from where you are joining. So before we start the session, can you please confirm that you all can hear me well and see my screen? Okay, good. So I'm getting responses. I'm glad that you are able to hear me well. So before starting today's session, let's have a small recap of yesterday's session. Okay, so yesterday we saw about version control system. Then we saw the Git version control system in specific. Then we saw the various commands that are used for Git, then different states of a file, different areas of Git. Then we saw about branching, then how to roll back, then clone, reuse, all those things we saw. So do you have any doubt? Were you able to try out these commands? Do you have any doubt in those topics? Were you able to try out those things and do the homework? Okay, so if you have any doubt, you can type in the question. We'll spend say 5 to 10 minutes to clear your doubts in last day's session. Okay, it looks like there are no questions. I am not getting any responses. Can you please confirm that we can continue with today's session then? Please reply by the chat message. Nainendu is asking, can we have, hi Abhijit, can we have nested Git? Nainendu, you mean one Git repo inside another Git repo? That is what you're talking about? Okay, Nainendu, that is not the functionality of Git. Actually, you may be able to add that, but please don't do that because see, Git is a version control system and it is a very good version control system. You'll be able to do almost anything with a Git version control system. So you should use like one folder because the purpose of having Git is to have to control your source, your application source, and all those things. You'll be able to control and add versions to that on using Git. So there is no purpose of having a nested Git. Okay, Vivek is asking, can we ask in the next session? Okay, Vivek, what you can do is you can go through the video during the weekdays, and then if you have any doubt, you can email me the question, and I'll get back to you. And if there is something that we need to discuss during the session, then of course you can ask, and I'll reply to that. Okay. So Virendra is saying not tried yet. Okay, so my answer will apply to Virendra as well. Then Rashmi is asking how we can migrate from different version control to Git version control. Rashmi, I don't think there is a specific like there is a particular or same format for all these version control. But if you are using Bitbucket and GitHub, then you should be able to use Git. But other than that, I'm not sure you will be able to migrate from one version control to another. I don't think it's possible if it is a entirely different version control system. So that's why companies that use one particular version control system tend to keep that version control system unless they feel that it's very bad for them. Okay, so Nainendu is asking, is there any specific difference of Git and code commit? Nainendu, are you talking about AWS code commit? Actually, AWS Code Commit, it is the version control system for AWS. So AWS has its own version control system that is similar to Git, but that is developed by AWS. And like when you are working with AWS systems and all, AWS prefers for you to use that one. So that also that also is a version control system. As I told you yesterday, version control systems have the same functionality. So even though the commands may be different or the name of that version control is different, they have the same functionality. So most of the version control will you will be able to use, but the most common and most popular version control system is Git. That is what we saw yesterday. Okay, so is there any other doubt? Okay, Vivek is asking, do we not have session in next week? In LMS, next session shown as 31. Vivek, I was not informed about any skipping session, but if there is any skip, like if there is no class next week, then you will get an email stating the same. I haven't received anything, so we'll assume for now that there is session for next week. So if there is any change in this one, you will get an email. Okay. So any other doubt? If there are no doubts, then I will proceed with today's session. Satyanarayana is asking, did I miss anything? Just joined. Satyanarayana, no, we are just reviewing last day's session. So we are clarifying some doubts regarding last day's session. We are only able to start today's session. So if you have any doubt in previous day's session, then you can ask it now. Okay, so it looks like there are no doubts. So if you have any doubt after going through the video once again during the week, please email me with the questions and I'll get back to you. Okay, so let's start with today's session. Okay, so today we'll be learning a very important tool in your DevOps journey. That tool is Docker. Okay, or Docker containers. This is a very important topic in this DevOps journey. So please be careful. Please follow me carefully. And if there is any doubt that you have during the session, please ask, and please do try out this session at least during the weekdays, so that you will be very clear about this one. Okay, so this is the one, this is the tool that we'll be using throughout our session. So when we go to configuration management and other tools, there also we'll be using this tool. Okay, so you'll be having experience with this tool all throughout the session, but so it is very important to have an understanding of this session. So we'll be having two sessions for Docker, because it is a very important and very advanced tool. So we'll be having two sessions, this session and the session after this one. So uh, so please listen and learn carefully. Okay, Prapanshu is asking, is Docker tool freely available for download to practice? Yes, Prapanshu, it is freely download available for you to download. Okay, so let's proceed. Okay, so what is Docker? Before learning about Docker, Pravansh is asking if please let us know link or any. Yes, Pravansh, that will be there in the slides. Okay, so let's proceed. So before learning about Docker, you should know what is a container, because Docker is a containerization platform or a container platform. Okay, so before learning about Docker, you should know what is a container. Okay, so a container is a way of packaging a software into standardized units for development, shipment, and deployment. Okay, so basically, uh, you have a software, right? So along with your software, whatever things that are needed for your software to run, all those things you will package into a single package or single container or single thing or single build. And that build you can like you can deploy, or you can deploy it to development, or uh, you can do it to production, everything you can do. So that package or that packaging of software is called a container. Okay, so using container, everything required to make a piece of software to run is packaged into isolated containers. So these containers will be isolated, so it is not dependent on any other thing. So if you have that container, then it is independent. Without any help also it should run. Okay, so unlike virtual machines, containers do not bundle a full operating system. We learned about virtual machines, right? So virtual machines created by VirtualBox and those virtualization tools, they will have a full operating system installed. So in short, in order to deploy an application, you will have to first have an operating system. Then you have to ship the operating system along with the application. In the case of virtual machines, but that is not the case with containers. So in containers, only libraries and settings required to make the software work are needed. Okay, so this leads to efficient, lightweight, self-contained systems and guarantees that software will always run the same regardless of where it is deployed. So it is platform independent. I hope I answered your question, Vivek. So since these are lightweight, self-contained systems and guarantees that the software will always run the same and regardless of where it is deployment, since it doesn't have any operating system specified, or it is not packaging the operating system along with the application, it is independent, like it can be self-contained, and it will always run the same on any platform or any device. Okay, Vivek is asking what does it mean by self-contained system. Vivek, what I meant by self-contained system, it means it is isolated containers, like it is not depending on anything else. It don't need, say, any virtualization tool for it to work. All those things are not required in this case. You only need that containerization software and it will work. You won't be like in the case of Vagrant. Vagrant, I told you, it's a wrapper, right? So Vagrant needs VirtualBox installed. In order to manage virtual machines using Vagrant, you will need VirtualBox installed or any virtualization tool installed. But in the case of containers, those are independent. It doesn't need VirtualBox or virtual machines required. Okay. Now Smriti is asking, Dockers are always independent. Yes, Smriti. Venkatesh is asking, please elaborate containers with example. Yes. Yes, we'll say that. Like actually, we'll be learning about Docker, which is an example for containers. So when we learn about Docker more, you'll be able to understand it fully. Vivek is asking then what's the base where it runs. That also we'll see, Vivek. Okay, now Docker. So what is Docker? Docker is currently the #1 container platform. So Docker is the world's leading software container platform. In fact, Docker is so popular that even cloud providers like Amazon support Docker. So now wherever you go, everywhere, including all the DevOps technologies like Chef, Puppet, all these things support Docker now. They will have Docker containers available and Docker images available which you can use. Okay, so developers use Docker to eliminate work on my machine problems when collaborating on code with coworkers. Like earlier I mentioned, like developers in the earlier stages, developers used to say that, okay, this code worked on my system, but I don't know why it is not working on your system, because they'll be giving the code for deployment, and for the operations team it may not work because their device or their system will be different configuration, will have different configuration. So this issue can be eliminated completely with the help of Docker. Okay, so this is for developers. Now for operators, they use Docker to run and manage apps side by side in isolated containers to get better compute density. Now, as I told you, this Docker containers or these containers, they are isolated systems, right? So what you can do is you can have multiple number of containers without affecting the, as it is lightweight, it won't affect the performance of other systems much. Okay, so operators or operations team can run and manage apps side by side. They'll be able to create multiple containers and test multiple, test the application in different environments and all those things. All those things they'll be able to do. Then enterprises use Docker to build agile software delivery pipelines to ship new features faster, more securely, and with confidence for both Linux and Windows Server apps. So you know that Vagrant, when you are using Vagrant or VirtualBox to create virtual machines, it will take some time for you to ready for your machine to be ready, right? So it may take up to say 1 or 2 minutes for your machine to be booted and ready. But that is not the case with Docker. It is really fast. If you want to create a new machine, new container with the help of Docker, you will be able to create that container. That container will be available for you within seconds. That's how fast Docker is. So enterprises use Docker to build agile software delivery pipelines to ship new features faster, because it is really fast and lightweight. Then more securely, it is really secure. Like outside world, unless you specify, they won't be able to access that machine. Okay, so It is more secure and with confidence for both Linux and Windows Server application. It can be it can be used to deploy applications on any platform like Linux or Windows or Mac, anything. Okay, that is Docker. Now we'll see some use cases of Docker. First thing is portability, security, and cost. So packaging existing apps. So Akhil is asking, does Docker take the storage space of base? Is it fixed or dynamic? Akhil, actually, when you use Docker, it will have a fixed space. It will require a fixed space for to store the image from which it is springing up the container. That we'll see at the later. But apart from that, you will be mapping folders to Docker containers. So whatever, if you have a folder in your machine, in your host machine, then that will be mapped to the Docker container. So based on the content of that folder, that folder will require space. Like that will need some allocation. Like from your machine, it will take the space. But that is what Docker needs. Apart from the space required to save the image, we'll see what image and all those things are later. Okay. Now, use case of Docker first is portability, security, and cost. So, packaging existing applications into containers immediately improves security, then reduce cost because you don't have to purchase new hardwares to try out different operating systems or different platforms and all. And gain cloud portability with no changes to the app code. So, if you are using a Docker container in your local machine and if it works, then the same thing without any change, you will be able to deploy it on cloud. So you don't have to look for a migration, or you don't have to look for another tool to deploy the same on the cloud if it is working on your local machine. That is not the case, because if it works on one machine, it will ensure that it will work on all machines, irrespective of whether it is local or cloud. Okay, sorry. Next is microservices. Containers streamline development and deployment of apps designed with the microservices architecture platform. Vivek is asking how it used the compute power. Vivek, it is lightweight when compared to Vagrant, or so when compared to VirtualBox and all. The containers or the virtual machines created by Docker is very lightweight. Like it may be like it may be using say 80% less compute power than virtual machine. This is only just an example. Sometimes it will even be 90% or 95% less compute power compared to virtual machines created by VirtualBox and all. So it is very lightweight. So Vivek is asking, so it's like a complete machine with the capability for being portable. Yes and no, Vivek. It is like a complete machine and it is completely portable, but it is only focusing on like one attribute that we'll see. After this, it will be clear, Vivek. So let me explain this. At that time, it should be clear to you. Okay. So this microservices, I think this should clarify that out. So microservices, like using Docker containers, it streamlined development and deployment of apps designed with the microservices architecture platform. Okay, so does any of you know what microservice is? Have any of you heard about microservices? No? Okay. So let me tell you an example with an example. Okay, so microservices is where you will be splitting your applications into independent chunks or independent blocks which can be plugged to have your full application. Now let's take the case of a web app service, like you are hosting an application. Okay, you are hosting an application in a website, or you are hosting a website. Say that website is in PHP, and you may need say database, PHP engine, then static analysis. These are things that you need for your website. Okay, now instead of having all these things in a single system or as a single block, with the help of microservices, what you will do is you will have one microservice for database, one microservice for PHP engine, another for static content delivery. So what you have done is you have split your application into independent chunks, independent blocks, or independent services. and these services can communicate with each other, and they can be combined and can deliver your whole application. So the advantage of having this is that these services are independent of each other. Like the database service, it doesn't require PHP service. The PHP service, it doesn't require database service. They can be run independently. And another thing is, if you are doing another application which has a requirement for DB, then you can use the same service, same microservice you can use for that application as well. So you don't have to develop the whole thing again. That is another advantage of having microservices. So when we are having containers, we will focus on only one service in a container. Okay, so the advantage of having container, or one of the advantages having container, is you should focus on having only one service in a container. You won't be running multiple containers. Containers are not meant for that one. Even though it will work, it is not how it should be done. Okay, I hope I answered your question also, Vivek. Now, Prabhanshu is asking, is Docker concept used in AWS and Azure as well, or they have different concept? Prabhanshu, the Docker as such, they'll be sorry, AWS and Azure, in order to provide you with this virtual machines and all, they'll be using the virtualization tools. But you can use Docker inside AWS and Azure virtual machines or machines. Okay. Now Vivek is asking that we can do using application server as well. It has web container, it has EJB container. Yes, container platforms all can do this, but Docker is one of the top container platform. Okay, so Ajinkya is saying I'm confused. Please simplify. Okay, Ajinkya, let me explain microservices once again. So microservices, say you have one application. Let's say you have one WordPress machine, or you consider the example of WordPress. It's a blogging blogging system, right? So WordPress requires one web interface. Then it will require one, say, PHP engine to run the PHP codes. Then it will require one a database to store and deliver your data. Okay, now in this particular case, this whole WordPress application can be split into three things. This is just an example. Okay, three things. First one is the content, which is the web content, like your JavaScript, your HTML files, and those static contents. Okay, then there is your PHP engine, which can execute PHP codes. That will be processing these PHP files. Okay, then you can have your database. It can be MySQL, or it can be Oracle. It can be NoSQL. It can be MongoDB. Anything. Sorry, MongoDB. It can be anything. Okay, so now if you want to convert your WordPress setup into microservices, then what you will have is you will have one separate service for database, one separate service for PHP engine, and one separate service for content delivery or static content. Okay, now these are independent blocks or independent services, and these services can be reused on other applications also. Okay, so that's why we use microservices. That is what is the concept of microservices. Is it clear, Ajinkya? Okay, good. Now Akhil is asking, so for every service it is recommended to create separate containers. If yes, will it not cause load on base machine? Exactly. Actually, Akhil, it is like in the case of Docker, it is recommended to have separate containers for separate services. Since it is so lightweight, it won't really affect the load on the base machine. Okay, so that is why it is recommended to have separate containers for separate services. So Nayan is just saying, um, ECS is the Docker in AWS. Yes, ECS, Elastic Container Service, is the, sorry, EC2 Container Service is the container service provided by AWS. But you can use Docker with the help of okay, that I'll get back. There is one tool, there is one service in AWS which will, yeah, Beanstalk, Elastic Beanstalk. Using Elastic Beanstalk, you'll be able to easily deploy your own Docker containers. Okay, now let's proceed with the use case of Docker. Then next use case is in DevOps, like in the CI/CD pipeline. So accelerate and automate development pipelines with rapid feedback loops while eliminating app conflicts and increasing developer productivity. This is self-explanatory. So if you are using Docker containers, it can accelerate and automate the uh, development capability of your team, and you can easily implement feedbacks, and you can eliminate any conflicts because these are independent. You're having independent containers, and there won't be any particular conflict in the app and all. Okay. Now, infrastructure optimization. So containerize apps and improve workload density by running them side by side on the same servers. So Docker helps reduce costs by consolidating infrastructure, improving utilization, and accelerating cloud migration. So containerizing apps, like you can containerize your apps and improve workload density by running them side by side on the same server. Like I mentioned, like in the same server, you can have different containers for different services. So the workload density for a particular container is very less in this case because you are having separate containers for separate services. So it is only focusing on one service. So it can focus all your compute power on uh, one service. So it is reducing the workload on each container. Okay. Now, hybrid cloud. From private data centers to public cloud infrastructure, Docker allows apps to be fully portable from one infrastructure to another without rewriting code. This is very important. Without rewriting code, you can use the same code. You can use the same method that you use in your local machine or your private data center on your public cloud infrastructure. You don't have to do any changes at all. Okay, now accelerate migration to cloud and enable a hybrid and multi-cloud environment. So using Docker, like Docker supports, like Docker promotes the creation of cloud, hybrid cloud or multi-cloud environment because of this portability, because of this ease in portability. Okay. Now, this is what it is like for developers. Docker for developers. Docker automates the repetitive task of setting up and configuring development environments so that developers can focus on what matters, like building great software. Like if you are a developer, then if you are creating a new software for say Linux platform or a Windows platform, then what you will have to do is first you will have to set up your local machine with that platform, or for the development environment for that platform, and then you have to manually configure everything so that initially it will work, and then only you will be able to start your development process, right? But if you're using Docker, that eliminates that process. Like now the developers don't need to have knowledge about setting up their machine for a particular environment. They can just use one Docker container, and they can just test their application on that particular Docker container, and it is easily portable. Like their code along with the Docker container, if they give, like if they can give the container name, and once other developers have that, and they can use the same one. So if one developer have a Docker system running, then the same can be used for others, and the code which runs on a particular Docker environment or Docker container in that developer's machine will always run on any machine. Okay. So developers no need to focus on configuring their development environments. They can focus on their work, their actual work of developing the application. Now for operations team. So Docker streamlines software delivery, develop and deploy bug fixes and new features without roadblocks, scale applications in real time. So these are the reasons why operations team use Docker, because Docker streamlines software delivery, like development and deployment bug fixes. They can add new features, or they can deploy new features without any roadblocks, because once it works on the developer system, then they can be sure that it will work on production environment also. They can be sure that it will work on the staging environment as well. They can be sure that it will work on the testing environment as well. So they don't have to redo everything for each and every deployment. Okay, and it also helps in scaling of applications in real time. So Akhil is asking, is Docker supported for desktop class machine like Windows 7, 8.1, etc.? Actually, Akhil, Docker is a software that you will be installing on your machine. It can be virtual machine or your PC, which can run on so Windows or Mac or Linux, and you will be able to avail the advantages of using Docker. So it is just an application that you will install, and once you install, you will be able to use that particular application to create containers. Is it clear? Okay. Now, platforms for Docker. So Docker can be integrated into various infrastructure tools, including Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, Ansible, Chef, Puppet, Salt, Jenkins. All those infrastructure, all these platforms support Docker now. Okay, so now it has come to a stage where if a provider doesn't support Docker, then they lose a good chunk of their business because Docker is so popular. People are always using Docker that if there is a particular provider who doesn't support Docker, then people will be reluctant to choose that particular provider for their services. That's how popular Docker is. Okay, now uh, let me tell you the difference between virtual machines like the virtual machines we create using VirtualBox or Vagrant tools and Docker containers. Okay, so this is the virtual machines architecture. So there you will have the hardware, which is the infrastructure. Then you will have your host operating system installed on top of it. Then above that you will have your hypervisor software, which can be VirtualBox or VMware. And on top of that you will have your guest operating system. Then on top of that, you will have binaries and libraries and the application itself. For each application, you will have different just operating system on top of your hypervisor. Is it clear? Is this architecture clear to all of you? This is how the virtual machine works, like right? The virtual machines that we create using VirtualBox or VMware. This is how it is. But when it comes to containers, it completely eliminates the use of guest operating system. You don't need to have guest operating system when you're running containers. So in containers, you will have your infrastructure, then you will have the operating system, your host operating system on top of that infrastructure. Then you will have one software called Docker Engine running on top of your operating system. That is the Docker software that you will be installing. Then you can have your binaries and applications on top of that. You don't need to have a guest operating system at all. You can just add your applications as containers. You can just have containers which can be Linux container or Ubuntu container, or it can be Windows container. It can be anything. Okay, Pramod is asking, is it free? Yes, Pramod, it is Docker is free, but enterprise version also is available. But for your purpose, you can always use Docker free version or community edition. Okay, Sadish is asking, what are binaries and libraries? Sadish, binaries and libraries are tools or codes that are required to run your application. It is specific to that particular application. Like when you are developing an application, you will be including some files, right? Including some libraries to that application. That is what is meant by binaries and libraries. Okay. Now, Akhil is asking, how can we know if our machine supports containerization? Akhil, actually, Mac and Linux machines definitely support Docker containerization, but recently Docker is introduced on Windows as well. Earlier it was not there, but now it supports Windows as well. There is a tool for Windows machine, and it is now supported. So you can install Docker on Windows or Mac or Linux now. Pramod is asking, SAP supports Docker. Pramod, I am not sure about SAP. Okay, so is this difference in architecture clear to all of you? Difference between virtual machine and containers? So Pravansh is asking, do we need to create separate containers for testing output in production, pre-production, and testing environment? Pravansh, you can have separate containers because see, containers are very easy to create and destroy. So you don't have to worry about it affecting the resource at all. So you can always have different containers in your pre-production system or your testing system or your production environment. That is up to you how you architecture your system. You can always have different containers, but like one container like the container that we are using for testing, You won't be using it for production because you can create similar containers in production separately. Okay. So this means okay, so in Docker it is not required to have guest. No, in Docker there is no concept of guest operating system. We'll see that in detail when we go through the upcoming slides. So Satyanarayan is asking how Docker engine is different than hypervisor. Okay, so Satyanarayan, hypervisor, it acts as an interface between the uh, infrastructure or the hardware and this guest operating system. Okay, but this Docker engine, it will manage the role of this guest operating system as well. So based on your requirement, it will automatically provide. So if it is a Linux, if you're running your container in a Linux environment, then it will behave as if it is a hypervisor, or it is similar. It can act as if it is a hypervisor in that Linux machine. So this guest operating system, the use of guest operating system will be completely eliminated with the help of Docker engine. Okay. Now Prapanshu is asking, creating several containers in a single machine will it impact base machine? Prapanshu, if you are having say 100 containers, then of course it will. But if you have say 3 or 5 or 6 containers, it won't be that much load. Like if you run say 1 or 2 Vagrant virtual machines using VirtualBox, then your whole system will be hung, right? But that is not the case with containers. You can have more number of containers than you can have virtual machines. But of course, if you have too much of containers, then it will definitely affect, because finally it is using the infrastructure that you have underneath. Okay. Now Ajinkya is asking where the user will log in container on Docker images or operating system. Ajinkya, that will be clear when we continue with the session. Okay, so Nayan is asking, when you say Docker engine, it's the Docker D daemon or anything else. Yes, Nanendu, I think you have some experience with Docker, so those things we'll be explaining in the upcoming slides. Okay, so Prapanshu is asking, is container concept like Zen desktop which can be accessed from any desktop? No, Prapanshu, container is different from Zen. Zen is like hypervisor, like it is like type 1 hypervisor. But container is entirely different. As I mentioned, by default containers won't be accessible from any other machine. You will have to provision it separately. Okay, so Venkateshwar is asking how the network segregation will happen between containers. Venkateshwar, we'll see that. Please hold your high-end questions regarding Docker and containers for later, because when we go through the session it will be clear to you. Akhil is asking, is the download image cached in Docker? Akhil, that also we'll see in the upcoming slides. So if this architecture difference between virtual machine and containers, if it is clear, then we'll proceed. Okay. So now let's see about Docker architecture. Okay. So Docker uses a client-server architecture. So there is a client and there is a server. So there is a Docker client, then there is a server called Docker host or Docker daemon, and there is a registry. This is the architecture of Docker. So Venkateshwar is asking, is there any chance if Docker engine will fail, then how about containers? So if your Docker engine fails, then of course the containers will also break. Okay. Now, as per the architecture, it has a client server architecture. The Docker client talks to the Docker daemon or the Docker server, which does the heavy lifting of building, or like building, running, and distributing your Docker. And all these things are done by this Docker daemon. Docker client will be communicating, will be talking to this Docker daemon. So you'll be executing your command in Docker client. Like your Docker client is the Docker command. So using that command, you are interacting with the Docker daemon or the Docker server. And Docker daemon or the Docker server will create the containers and all those things it will manage. So all the heavy lifting is done by this Docker daemon. Okay, so this Docker client and Docker daemon can run on the same machine or on different machines. Like you can link a Docker daemon running on a different machine with client running on your machine. That is possible. So it is not a compulsory that the Docker client and Docker daemon are running on the same machine, but it is possible. Like when we show the example, I'll be showing you a Docker daemon running in the same machine, Docker daemon and Docker client running in the same machine. But you can have Docker daemon on separate machine as well. Okay, so now Docker registry is where these images are stored. Like you will be using some images for creating Docker containers. Those images will be stored in Docker registry. This can be in the cloud, or this can be in your private repository. It can be in your private data center, anything. So Docker also has its own public repository system, that is the registry. Okay, so this is the Docker architecture. Now, Vivek is asking, what are the advantages and disadvantages of running it on same machine and in different machine? Actually, there are no disadvantages or advantages of having that on. Only thing is, like if you don't want your Docker daemon to run on, like if you want to use a single system or single server as Docker daemon, then what you can do is you can have that as your common daemon, and your Docker clients installed on other servers can communicate with that particular Docker daemon. So one advantage of having that one is that, see, this Docker daemon manages all the things, right? Manages this container, all the containers. So if you have a Docker daemon in a separate server, then what you will have is, if you have say multiple servers, different servers having running Docker client, then all those containers created in each server, all those things will be visible by this Docker daemon. So you will be able to get details of other Docker containers running on other servers from within any server. That is the advantage of using Docker daemon in a separate system, like from a separate system. If you are using a common Docker daemon for multiple Docker clients, then that is the advantage that you get. Is it clear, Vivek? Now Smriti is asking, what are the uses of storing image in registry? Smriti, that will be clear when we talk about how Docker works in the upcoming slides. Okay. Now we'll see about the components of Docker. We saw there are three things: Docker daemon, Docker client, and Docker registry. These are the components of Docker. We saw this in the architecture. So this is how it is. You have the server, which is the Docker daemon, and you have the client, which is the Docker client, and they'll be communicating with each other using REST API calls. And registry is where you'll be saving those images, or where you'll be pulling those images from. Okay, so these are the three components in Docker. Is it clear? So using CLI, you will be executing commands. Then that command, it will be communicating with the Docker daemon using REST API calls. So Akhil is asking, can you customize Docker image and put in local registry? Yes, Akhil, you can do that. Actually, in the next session, we'll be seeing how to do that as well. Okay. Now we'll see how to we'll understand these Docker components more. Okay, so Docker daemon, first is Docker daemon. So the Docker daemon, or Docker D, listens for Docker API requests and manages Docker objects such as images, containers, networks, and volumes. A daemon can also communicate with other daemons to manage Docker services. Okay, this is Docker daemon. I hope this answered your question, Nainendu, I think, asked about whether Docker server is a Docker daemon. Okay, so Vivek wants to go back to the previous slide. Vivek, do you have any doubt in this slide? Okay, Vivek just want to understand. So can I proceed, Vivek? So you have your Docker daemon and you have Docker client, and the Docker client will be communicating. Docker client is a Docker CLI. The Docker client will be communicating with the Docker daemon using REST API calls. Okay, so this Docker daemon, as I told, it will be handling those heavy weights. It will be doing those heavy lifting of managing images, containers, networks, and volumes. And Docker client will be communicating with the Docker daemon, and Docker daemon is the Docker D. So Venkateshwar is asking in the diagram which one is managing which one. Venkateshwar, I'm not sure about what you're talking about. Are you talking about this particular diagram? In the previous diagram, okay, here. Okay, you mean these containers, images, and data volumes? Okay, actually, using this Docker CLI, you'll be executing commands, but the actual process of managing these things will be done by the Docker daemon. But to trigger that management, you'll be using the Docker CLI or the Docker client. Is it clear, Venkateshwar? Okay. Now, this one we saw Docker daemon. Now next is Docker client. So Docker client, which is the Docker CLI, which is also the Docker command, is the primary way that many Docker users interact with Docker. So you will also be interacting with Docker daemon using Docker client, which is the Docker command. So when you use commands such as Docker run, the client sends these commands to Docker D, which is the Docker server or Docker daemon, and that carries them out. The Docker daemon will carry that command out. The Docker commands uses the Docker API. The Docker client can communicate with more than one daemon. So you can specify which daemon you want your client to talk to, and it will communicate to that daemon. And another thing is, in here you saw that Docker daemons can communicate with each other. So if there are say two daemons in different servers, those daemons can communicate to each other. Okay. Next is Docker registry. Now, a Docker registry stores Docker images. Docker Hub and Docker Cloud are public registries that anyone can use, and Docker is configured to look for images on Docker Hub by default. You can even run your own private registry. As I mentioned, you can consider this registry as a repository where your Docker images will be saved. Okay, it is like the registry for your VM boxes or registry for your ISO files, like that. So Docker registry is where the Docker images are stored in the cloud. It can be in the cloud, or it can be a private registry, or it can be in your private data center. It's up to you. Okay, but some of the public registries that Docker provides us are Docker Hub and Docker Cloud, and by default, Docker is configured to look for images in Docker Hub. Okay, is registry clear to all of you? Someone asked some doubt about why we use registry. Is it clear to? Is it clear why we use registries now? Why we need registry? Okay, we wants me to replace this. Okay, so see now Docker registry is used to store Docker images. So we'll be having something called Docker images, and these images will be stored in a registry. See, in this diagram, this is the registry. Let's say this is the Docker Hub registry, and it will have different images. One can be Ubuntu image, one can be Redis image, or one can be CentOS image, one can be Nginx image. So that image will reside in the online registry, or it resides in the Docker Hub, where it stores those images. So now when you execute a particular command, what the Docker daemon will do is it will download that, it will pull that image to your local machine, and then use that image to create the container. So the registry is where these images are stored. These images are used to create containers. Is it clear? So there are two registries, public registries provided by Docker. They are Docker Hub and Docker Cloud. By default, Docker is configured to look for images on Docker Hub. Okay, good. Now let's proceed. Now we'll see about installing Docker. So if you want to install Docker on Ubuntu, you have to use apt get install and Docker -c. Please don't use Docker when you are installing Docker on Linux. You have to use Docker-c. Okay, so after installing Docker, you can execute the command docker run space hello -world to ensure that Docker is installed. So Sadish is asking, but in previous slide, Docker supports app4. Sadish, I didn't understand your question. Can you please elaborate your question? Application. So but in previous slide, Docker supports application. I'm still not understanding the question, Sadish. So what we'll do is we'll proceed with the thing, and after I start showing you examples, at that time, if you have the same doubt, please ask. Vivek, then at that time your question also will be answered. Vivek asked like, Ubuntu is the image on which Docker images is running. That question also will be answered when we do the examples. Okay, I'll explain at that time. Okay, now if you have a Windows machine and you want to install Docker, then you have to download Docker for Windows from this particular URL, and you have to run the installer to install the install Docker on your machine. Now, for Windows 8 users and all, like some of the latest Windows machines, you may not have Docker for Windows available. But in that case, you will have to install Docker machine separately. In this link, they mentioned like there is a prerequisite section, and you can check whether your Windows comes under that one, and if not, there is one alternative available which you can install. That everything is there in this particular URL. Okay, Venkateshwar is asking, can we install Docker on Red Hat Linux or CentOS? Yes, yes, CentOS. Yes, Venkateshwar. So you can install Docker on those things. So when you go to this Docker website, there are different sections which displays how to install on different platforms. So Akhil Rajan is asking, Docker-C installs Docker daemon, or it will install client also. And Akhil, actually this Docker software, Docker for Windows or Docker for Mac or Docker-C, it installs both daemon and client. So Venkateshwar is asking, please show us the installation of Docker. Venkateshwar, actually it's pretty straightforward installation. Like it's just like installing any other software. So I think it will be a waste of time to show that. And so since it is already installed on my machine, I'll be showing that. But please go through this URL and you can install as such. Okay. And if you have any issue while installing, please email me and I'll get back to you. Okay. But installing Docker on Mac. So for Mac, you can go to this link and download the Docker for Mac stable version, and you can install it by double clicking the DMG file, and you will have the Docker app. So once you have Docker installed, you can execute Docker run hello-world to ensure that it is installed. So Pravanshi is asking if we are trying to download Docker by using Docker-C. It's saying package Docker-C has no installation candidate. Pravanshi, are you trying to install on Linux machine? Okay. So basically, did you try to execute the sudo apt-get update before executing this, installing this? Okay, then I'm not sure why this error is happening. So what you can do is you can send the command that you executed and the error you are getting by email, and I will get back to you. Okay. So let's proceed. Now let's go to practicals. As I told you, once you install Docker, if you want to check whether Docker has installed, it is successfully installed on your machine, you have to execute the command. Sorry, Docker run hello-world. Okay, so before executing this, let me explain this command to you. See here, this Docker, this is the Docker CLI or the Docker client that you are going to execute, and this is the command you are executing, the run command. Okay, and here this hello world, this is the image name. So Rashmi is asking, for this also git bash is required. No, Rashmi, git bash you can use on any code version control, but Docker as such it is not required, but you can always use if you want. But here it is not related to git bash. You mean git bash? Sorry, I was talking about git. Regarding git bash, yes, I would suggest you executing this in git bash. Okay, so as I mentioned, this Docker is the Docker CLI or the Docker client, and this run is the command that this client is running, and this hello world is the image name. Okay, so when you execute this command, like you're getting some messages. You're getting one message called hello from Docker. Okay, so this message shows your installation appears to be working correctly. Okay, if you get a message like this, then you can be sure that your Docker installation is successful. Okay, now here in Docker, this image also tells you, this content also tells you what are things that happened behind the scene when you executed this particular command. Okay, so first step is the Docker client contacted the Docker daemon. So the Docker client, which is the Docker CLI, contacted the Docker daemon that is running in my machine. Okay, in the second step, the Docker daemon pulled the hello world image from the Docker hub. So this hello world image, it was pulled from the Docker hub during the second step. So in the third step, the Docker daemon created a new container from that image which runs the executable that produces the output that you are currently reading. So after pulling this hello world image from Docker hub, the Docker daemon created a new container from that image, and that container uh, run runs the executable that is specified in that image, and that executable produce this message, this output message that you are seeing. Is it clear? Then during the final step, the Docker daemon streamed that output to the Docker client, which sent it to a terminal. So Docker daemon will give this output back to this Docker client, and that is the Docker client is the one which is displaying that on the terminal. Is it clear? Is the steps clear to you? These are the steps that are happening behind the scene when you execute a Docker command. Is it clear? Any doubt in this one? Now let's browse the Docker hub. Okay, so in order to browse, you have to go to hub.docker.com. Okay, so this is the Docker repository. Okay, image repository of Docker, which Docker provides. Now here you can search for an image, like if you want to search for Nginx image, then you can search Nginx, and it will show you the images that are available with that particular name of that particular tag, which is similar to that one. Okay, so here you will see the name of the image. Here in this case it is Nginx, and you can see whether it is official or not. If it is official, that means it is supported by Docker. Okay, so there you can also create your own repository, and that also can be displayed here. And here you'll see the popularity and the number of polls. And if you want to see the details of that particular image, you can click this details, and it will take you to the details of that page. We'll see this section in detail later, but this is Docker Hub. This is where the images are. Okay, now coming back to a terminal, you can search this Docker Hub using Docker CLI as well. For that, what you can do is you can execute the command docker search Nginx. See, this also will give you a list of, like, see, engine, this is the image. If it is official build, for official is okay, that means this is official build. See, all those things that you see in here, you will get here. So this is like using CLI. If you want to search for an image, you will be using this command. Okay, now Akhil is asking, how can we trust an image is genuine in Docker Hub? Akhil, if you have an official tag, if you have an image tagged as official, then you can be sure that it is a genuine thing, because Docker supports that one. Docker guarantees that it is a genuine thing. But other things, you will have to do it in your own risk, or otherwise you will have to create your own images. Okay. Okay, good. Now let's proceed. Now let's proceed one another image. Let's create a new container with another image. Like we'll be creating, like, okay, before that let me show you something else. So in here, let me search for Ubuntu image. Okay, so Tushar is asking, has Docker run hello world has made any changes in system? Could you show that? No, Tushar. Docker run hello world, it won't make any change to the system as such, apart from caching that image. That we will see when we execute this one. Okay, let's execute the subsequent commands. Okay, Prashant is asking, Docker daemon gets installed on our machine once we install Docker from the link. Prashant, I'm not sure I understand your question, but once you install Docker software on your machine, you will have Docker daemon and Docker client in that machine. Okay, now this is the official Ubuntu image. I'll be using this image. Virendra is asking, do we need to create an account in Docker to use the images? No, Virendra, you don't have to create an account to use the image, but if you want to create your own image, then of course you will have to use that. Okay, now see here, you can see there are various versions of Docker. So this particular image, there are various versions. So I'll be using this trusty version. Okay. Now, if you want to use this image, first thing that you will have to do is, let me show you. First thing that you have to do is you have to do docker pull Ubuntu, then colon followed by the version name. Okay, so if you don't specify this colon version name, then it will automatically look for version with latest tag, version named latest. Okay, so Rashmi is asking, so in Windows, how will it work? Rashmi, this is irrespective. We are going to create a container running Ubuntu. It has nothing to do with the host machine. Once you install Docker in your Windows, then it will take care of that. It will take care of creating a container running Ubuntu and all for you. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, so first thing that you have to do is you have to pull the image. So when you execute this command, what it will do is it will check the Docker hub. It will check the Docker hub for an image named Ubuntu with this version or this version name, and it will pull that thing from Docker hub. And first it will check your local machine. If there is, it will check your local cache if that image is already downloaded. If it is already downloaded, then you will get a message like this: image is up to date for Ubuntu Trustee. So first time when you execute this command, it may take some time for you to see the thing, because it will be downloading that image. It may take some time. Okay, so since I want to show you during the session, I have already downloaded that thing. That is why it's saying image is up to date. So we just need to execute this command and it will be downloaded and cached in your local machine. Okay, so Akhil is asking, where is cache path for Docker in base? Akhil, you don't have to worry about that one, but if you want to see the images that you have in your machine, what you can do is you can execute the command docker images. If you execute this command, it will show the list of images that are in your local machine, that are cached in your local machine. You can see I have Nginx, Ubuntu, and lot of machines. As you can see, I use Docker a lot. So Nginx, Ubuntu, all these things are cached, and you can see this Nginx image is taking up 109 MB of my local space and 222 MB for Ubuntu machine and all. Okay, so this is how you can see the list of images that are there in your machine. Okay, so Virendra is asking, please show downloading a new image. Virendra, there is nothing new in this one. See, if you execute this one first, it will check. If it is not there in the cache, then it will automatically download. You don't have to do anything at all. So, but it will take time and it will also take bandwidth. So it may lag the thing. So I would rather not do that, but you can just execute the command and it will download for you. There is nothing special about that. Okay. Now, if you want to remove an image from this list or from your cache, then what you can do is you can execute the command. Execute the command docker rmi followed by this image ID. See, you will have something called image ID. You can see the tag like the image name, which is Ubuntu. Tag is trusty. Image ID is this one. So if you want to delete a particular image, if you want to delete this particular image, what you can do is you can Copy that and you can execute this command. I'm not going to execute that one, but if you execute this, it will remove that image. So next time when you execute this docker pull ubuntu trusty, it will pull from the online repository, online GitHub, sorry, Docker Hub. Okay. Now Shreyas is asking, does any space on local machine needs to be allocated for Docker? No, you don't have to specify anything separately, but these images, as you can see, will take space in your local machine. Okay, is it clear, Shreyas? Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll take a 15 minutes break. So now it's coming up to 8:06. We'll be back at 8:21. Okay, we'll be back at 8:21 after 15 minutes break. Hello and welcome back, everyone. So before we restart the session, can you please confirm that you all can hear me well and see my screen? Okay, good. So now before we proceed, I think there are some doubts. Like uh, Akhil asked, are there log files for Docker? Yes, Akhil, that also we'll see during today's session. Then okay, that's it. So let's proceed. So we saw how to pull an image, right? Now we'll saw how to create a container from that image. Okay, for that what you'll do is you will execute the command docker run followed by the image name, which is Ubuntu Trusty in our case. Okay, now what is happening? I have my command back, but did my container run, or what did happen? So in order to check whether any container is running at the moment, what you can do is you can execute the command docker ps. It will show you the containers that are running at that particular moment. Okay, now if you want to see the list of containers that are the history of the containers created, then what you can do is you can execute the command docker ps minus a. Okay, with the minus a flag you can execute the docker ps command. So if you execute that, you can see the list of containers that you have run. See, there is one Ubuntu Trusty container with Ubuntu image Ubuntu Trusty which ran 43 seconds ago. See this one. So that means our container ran, but it went out. We'll see how why that is. But let me execute the container. Let me try to create another container using the same image once again. Okay, just now I executed, and if I do docker ps minus a, docker ps, sorry, okay, let me add some space and do this. Okay, docker ps minus a, and as you can see, there was one ran 24 seconds ago, and before that we ran one minute ago. So that means our container is created, but after creating it got terminated, like it came up and went. Okay, that is because, as I mentioned, when you execute a command, when you execute the run command, it will execute the executable that is mentioned in that image, right? So in this particular case, that executable, you can see it here. See, in this section here, you can see the command that you ran. So this is the command that executed. So it just came and went. So for that one, so if you want to, like, if you execute the command like docker run ubuntu trusty, instead of that, if you execute ls minus la or ls minus l, what it will do is it will execute this command. It will create a container, execute this command, and show the output. See, now this list of directories or files is coming from that container, from the container created from this image. This is the output of that command. This is the output of this command executed inside that container that we created just now. So if you execute docker ps minus a once again, you'll see that there was a container ran 19 seconds ago, and the command executed is ls minus l. See this one. Is it clear? Now, what if you want to have Akhil Dad is asking, is there any retention period in Docker PS minus A? Akhil Dash, that I'm not sure, but I don't think there is that much retention period, because as you can see from 15 months ago also in this one, but I'm not sure about there is a retention period. Let me check. You can send me an email with this one and I'll check and get back to you. Okay. Now, what if you want to get control over, like you have to create the container and you need control over that container? So Vivek is asking, are we checking the processes using ps minus a? No, Vivek, that is a Docker command. See, Docker ps will give you the list of containers that are currently running. Okay, docker ps minus a. This is a docker command. Don't confuse it with ps minus a command. Okay, this is a docker command. So this docker command ps minus a, it will show you the list of containers that you have already run, the history of your container running. Okay. Now, what if you want to get control over that container after creating the container? Now it just came up and went, right? You didn't have any control over it. So in order to have that, what you can do is you can execute this docker command with the flag minus ti. T means terminal, I means interaction, interactive. So interactive terminal you will have, then followed by the image name and version name. Okay, now see. Now I am inside that container. If I execute ls minus l, I'll get the same output as I got earlier because it's using the same image. See, now it is just it is a separate what it is a separate container. It is a separate machine. So you have a machine now. You have an Ubuntu machine now. Did you see how much time it took for me to create an Ubuntu machine? Now, do you understand the difference when we use VirtualBox and containers? Did you see the difference? And now, if you do say px minus aux, you can see this is the PID one. So whenever you execute a container, whenever you run a container, at that time, whenever you run a container at that time, the executable that will be executed is the like is the command specified in the Docker image. So in this particular Docker image, which is Ubuntu Trusty, the executable mentioned is /bin/bash. So that is what the PID1 is. PID1 is the first process that is running. So since we entered into terminal interactive mode, that is Docker run minus TA, what it did is we could enter this Ubuntu, the container created from this particular image in terminal mode. So you will get the terminal. It is like SSHing into that container. Okay, so this is it clear? Now, if you run Docker run is used to create containers from this particular image. Okay, so here we can specify the image name. Okay, so Docker run will create the image, but if you use minus TA, you will have terminal access to that particular container created from that image. Is it clear, Sadish? Okay. Now Vivek is asking PID is the process ID. Yes, Vivek, PID is the process ID. Okay. Now what will happen is let me create on directory like okay. So before that, okay, let me create on like mkdir devox, and if you do ls, you can see that okay. Let me do ls minus l, and you can see my directory here, the directory that I created here. So this is just a Linux machine, so you will be able to interact with like how you do with the Linux machine. Now let's do one thing. Let's execute this is my local machine. Please don't get confused. Then if you execute docker ps now, you can see that one container is running. Earlier there was nothing running, right? Because one container is running and we are within that container. So Sadish is asking, it doesn't need credentials for login. No, Sadish, this is like you are using, you are creating the container using Docker and entering into that directly. This is being handled by Docker. You don't need any credentials. Okay. Then Vivek is asking, Vivek is saying he's confused. What are these in command prompts? Vivek, I'm not sure I understood your question. What do you mean by what are these two command prompt? So no, this is my terminal. See, this is my local machine. See, you go to there is nothing. This is my local machine. So if I do pwd, this is my local machine. So this terminal also is my local machine. But inside that, when I execute this one, I entered into that Ubuntu machine, Ubuntu container that I created. Okay, is it clear, Vivek? So please don't get confused. So in order to show the Docker PS while this terminal is active, in order to show that I went to another terminal window and showed you this command execution. Is it clear, Vivek? So Vivek is asking, so Mac OS, Docker, Ubuntu. Yes. So this is my Mac OS terminal, and here I am inside my Ubuntu terminal, Ubuntu container. Okay. So, but when I exit from this particular terminal, if you do exit, it will enter out of that particular container and come back to my Mac machine, Mac terminal. Okay. Now there are a couple of questions. Let me check that one. So Tushar asked, could you help with query? Tushar, can you explain what query you're talking about? Then Akhil is asking, so container will run even if no service is running, as you showed with Docker PS. No. See, Docker PS is to get the list of containers running. It has nothing to do with Docker service. Actually, Docker daemon or Docker D is always running in the background. This Docker PS is just to get the list of containers running at that moment. Okay. Now Sadish is asking, then how can I take a remote session? Is it possible? Yes, Sadish, when we talk about networking, it will be clear to you. Okay, but for now, just consider that this is how you can enter into the terminal. Tushar is asking, I tried to use Docker run Nginx. It keeps on blinking. Tushar, I'll be showing Nginx as an example during today's session. So after that tryout, please don't try out during the session or while I am talking out. Please focus on this session so that it will be clear to you. Otherwise, you will miss the points that I am talking about. Okay. So I'll be, in fact, I'll be taking Nginx as an example in today's session. So please be patient. Okay, now as you can see, one container is running, which is this particular container, and as you can see, it will give one random name. Docker will automatically give some random name for that container, and this container ID and container name, it will be unique. So Pramod is asking, run and mkdir doing same task. Is there any difference? What do you mean by run and mkdir doing same task? See, run, I executed Docker run command to create the container, and inside the container, I created a directory using mkdir command. This is the Linux command. I'm not sure why you asked that question. What do you mean by run and mkdir doing same task? See, this is a Docker command, Docker run. This is to create a container. It is to create a Docker container. Inside that container, since I have terminal interaction using -ta, I have enabled terminal interaction. I am inside that Ubuntu container now. And inside the container, I executed mkdir and I created a directory within that container. Okay, Sadesh is asking, can you please explain how to log into Ubuntu machine? Sadesh, please focus on this one. We saw how to SSH into that Ubuntu machine when we executed the Vagrant, when you created new virtual machines using Vagrant, right? That is how you can SSH. But in this case, you can directly enter inside the container without using SSH with the help of Docker if it is a container created by Docker, or if it is a Docker container. Okay. Now, as you can see, now what will happen is if I use px minus aux inside this container, you can see pad1 is this bin bash, right? Now if I execute the command exit, then I'll be exited from that particular container and I'll come back to my Mac machine. Okay, so when we do exit, when we execute the command exit inside the terminal, what is happening is it will exit, it will close this pad1, it will terminate this pad1. That is why the container also is getting terminated. Now if I execute docker ps, you can see that the container is no longer running. Okay, is it clear? So now what if you have to create like what if you have to get out of the terminal without terminating the container? Let's see how that can be done. So for that, first you will run a new container. So please be clear that this is a new container. Okay, So if I do ls minus l now, I won't see that DevOps folder that I created because that is in a different container. So Virendra is asking, can you run docker ps minus a? Okay, I'll execute the command docker ps minus a. So this is my output. So this one, it is up and running now because I just entered into one container. I just created a container. That is this one, and this one was the one that we exited just before this one. And if you execute docker ps now, you will see one container running, which I executed this one. And as you can see, the name of the container and container ID also is different. Okay, now I'll create another folder, mkdir. I'll create a new folder, DevOps test folder. Okay, so ls minus l, I can see the DevOps test folder created. Now, if you want to exit from this particular container without terminating the PID1, then what you can do is you can use the combination control PQ. Okay, so it should be control PQ. If you follow this particular command, if you follow this particular key combination, then you will be able to exit from the container without exiting the PID1. Now if I do docker ps, I can see that container is still running, but I don't have access to that container terminal anymore. Terminal access to that container is not there, but still the container is running because I was able to exit from the container or exit from the terminal of the container without terminating the PID1. Okay, now let's see how to get back the terminal, how to enter into that container once again. This running container, how to get back to that container. So for that, what you can do is you can copy this container ID, and in here you can execute the command docker attach followed by the container ID, or here you can use container name also. This container name also you can use, but I'll be using container ID. Okay, so docker attach container ID, you will you will get control inside that terminal. Now we are inside that container. See, earlier you are inside this particular container. Now also I am inside the same container. Now if I do ls minus l, can anyone tell me what will happen? Will I see this particular folder or not? Will I see this DevOps test folder? Can anyone tell me? Prashant is saying yes. Pramod, Sadish, Mahesh, Fritz, everyone is saying yes. Very good, because this we are entering into the same container. So we will have the same folder. So this, you can see that using attach followed by the container ID, you can enter into the container. Okay. Now I'll exit from this container. Now when I executed exit, can you tell me what will happen if I execute docker ps? Will I see any container running, or I won't see anything? Can anyone tell me? It will not show. Everyone is saying no. Okay, very good. Because now when I exited, it exited from the PID1. The PID1 is terminated. So when I exit docker ps, it's not there. Okay. Now Vivek is asking what happened earlier to the earlier container you created. That is terminated. Vivek. Okay, so Prashant is asking DevOps REST folder which is created in this image utilizes space of our local machine. Yes, Prashant, it will utilize space in your local machine. So Vivek is asking terminating meaning we have lost session. Yes, we have lost session, but there is a way to get back to that container. That is what I'm going to show you now. Rashmi is asking the same question, so that will be clear once I show you this one. Okay, now I'll go to I'll execute the command docker ps minus a to get the list of containers, and I'll say I want to enter into let's say I want to enter into this container once again. Okay, so what I can do is I can copy this container ID. As long as that list is there, that particular container is there in this docker ps history, what you can do is you can do the command docker start followed by the container ID. Okay, now if you go to this execute docker ps, you can see that container is running again. Okay, the same container is running. This is not a new container. The same container, we restarted it. Okay, now how to enter into this container? Can anyone tell me how can I enter into this running container now? Using attach, actually saying attach. Exactly, Vivek also is saying attach. So docker attach followed by the container id, and now I am inside that container. Now if I do ls, what will ls minus l, what will happen? Will I get this DevOps test folder, or it will be an empty thing? Yes, I'll get the thing. Prashant is saying empty. No, Prashant, see, if I do ls, I will say have the same folder, because I restarted this container. I restarted the container that I terminated earlier. Okay, good. Now this is how you can do it. Okay, so now Vivek is asking, so when you come, it's just VM shutdown. Yes, it is like VM shutting down. So unless you remove a container, like if you want to remove a container, like let me exit from this one, and I'll execute docker ps minus a. Docker ps, you can see it's empty. Docker ps minus a, I'll execute, and I can see this particular image, right? This particular container, right? Now, if I want to remove this container from this list, then what I can do is I can execute the command docker rm followed by that container id. Now that container is removed. So now if you go to docker ps minus a, you won't see that container anymore. See that container which has got that some laughing name as laughing, that one is not there anymore because you removed that explicitly. Now you won't, there is no way you can get that folder back. There's no way that you can get this DevOps test folder back. So the container is deleted. Yes, Vivek, the container is deleted now. Okay. Now uh, Sadish asking, can I use -ta command to start session? To restart the session? No, but we'll be seeing something else. Like Satyanarayan is asking the difference between exec minus ta and attach. Satyanarayan, that is what I'm going to explain next. Okay, at that time, your question also will be answered. Okay, now now let's execute another command. Okay, Shreyas is asking, if some user is logged into a container, can we remove that container? Okay, that is a very good question, Shreyas. So let's try that. So I'll create a new Ubuntu trusty container from that Ubuntu trusty image. Now, if I can do, if you do docker ps, you can see that container is still running, right? So what if I execute the command docker rm now? So it is saying, see, you cannot remove a running container. But there is one option where you can force remove that container. For that, what you can do is you can execute command docker rm minus f followed by the container id. Now it will forcefully remove the container, and you will automatically be logged out of that container because it's no longer there. Is it clear, Shreyas? Okay, good. Now let's see something else. Like, let's create a new container with the image named nginx. Okay, so this is the image that I am going to use now. So I executed the docker run nginx command. Now this is creating. First it will check whether the image is there in my local machine, and if it is up to date. Now since I haven't specified any version name, it will automatically look for engine colon latest. Okay, so now what is happening? I don't have control back to my terminal. So what is the thing that is happening now? Let's try executing docker ps. Prashant is saying download. No, Prashant, see, now you can see that docker, when you execute docker ps, you can see the container is running, but I don't have my terminal access back. That is because PID1 for docker, this nginx image is a daemon. See, it is running a daemon. So that means that the daemon is running. That is the reason why you are getting the terminal back. Actually, this daemon is running. This nginx daemon is running. So this container is actually running at the moment. Okay. So Ajinkya is asking, is it possible to take snapshot of Docker image? Yes, it is possible, Ajinkya. That we'll see in the next class. So Vivek is saying he didn't understand this. Sadish also wants me to explain this. Okay, so now when I execute a Docker run Nginx, then what happened is I didn't get my control back. Now I don't have access to this terminal. I can just type, but I don't have my terminal window back. But when I execute a Docker PS, you can see that the container, a new container with my Nginx container from Nginx image is running. That means it has created a container, and now the container is running. The container is running a daemon. The container is running an Nginx daemon. It is like a server. Nginx is a web server, so the Nginx process is ran as a daemon. So that is running. That is the reason why you don't get the terminal back. Okay. Now, if I execute Control C, I'll be able to get the terminal back. Now, what will happen if I execute Control C? It will exit from the. It will remove or delete the stop the PID1 process as well, which is the Nginx daemon command. So the container is exited. You are exited out of the container. The container is no longer running. So Akhil is asking, if we exit Docker run, execute Docker run, exit Docker run, will Docker PS show Nginx? I think I answered your question as well, Akhil. Okay, good. Now what if you want to get control, or you want to get back your terminal window access after executing this one? For that, what you can do is, Sadish is asking, he didn't understand. Sadish, I think after this you will understand. Okay. Now, if I want to get Sadish is asking, you shuffling windows. Sadish, see, these are two windows. Here I am only executing Docker PS and all those Docker PS and Docker PS minus -a, so that I can simultaneously show whether the image is running or not. This is for creating images. This window, this tab I am using for creating images or creating containers, and this tab I am using to see the status of those containers. Is it clear, Sadish? So please don't confuse. That's why I changed the background color as well. Is it clear, Sadish? Can you please respond? Okay, good. Now, what I can do is we can execute the command docker run. Then we can use -d flag. If you use -d flag, then it will run as in daemon mode. So followed by the image name I will give. So now if I execute, what will happen is it will create a container. It will give the output. It will give the container ID, but you will get the terminal access back. Vivek is asking daemon meaning background. Exactly, Vivek. It is running in the background. So now if I do Docker PS here, you can see the container is running and I have access to my terminal back. So if you are running containers from images like Nginx, then what will happen is if you don't execute this -d command, then you won't have the terminal window back. Okay, so if you have to run using -d flag. Okay, I hope I answered your question also, Trushar. Is it clear now why you are seeing that blinking when you executed Docker run Nginx? Is it clear, Tushar? Is it clear now? Okay, I hope it's clear to you, Tushar. So let me proceed. So before proceeding, okay, Tushar is clear. Akhil is asking, so Nginx image will have a web server also while we run. Yes, exactly. Nginx is a web server. So this image will give you a web server. So that is a service. So a web server service is now ready for you. Pramod is asking how to enter Nginx terminal. Pramod, that is what we are going to see next. Okay. Now we have this Nginx container running. This is my container ID. So I'll just copy this container ID. Now, if I want to enter into this terminal, into the terminal of this particular machine, what we have to do is you have to execute the command docker exec. There is a command called docker exec followed by -ti followed by the container ID. So, followed container ID followed by the process like bash. You want terminal access, right? So you have to execute bash also. So now I am inside my Nginx container. So this is how you will be able to enter into a container. Okay. So Akhil is asking, we cannot use attach here. Akhil, I'll come back to that. But before that, if you execute docker ps minus aux in here, sorry, ps minus aux, their command is not there because uh, it is not using that default Linux thing. Okay, so now in this one, if I exit from here, what will happen? Can anyone tell me what will happen if I exit from this one? Will the container be terminated? Pramod is saying container stop container. Fritz is saying it will keep running. Akhil is saying no. I think Sadish saying you will log to Ubuntu machine. No, actually, Deshmi is saying terminator. Virendra is saying keep running. Okay, so actually, when I execute the command exit, what it will do is it will exit from this process, the process that I executed, which is bash. So the PID one, which is Nginx, is still running. So if I execute docker ps, I can see the Nginx still running. So clear. Now let's try to answer Akhil's question regarding can we use attach. So if you do docker attach followed by this one, what you will get? You will get back to the original engine where you don't have the control back, but you want terminal access, right? That is why we use exec. We use exec minus ti. Is it clear, Akhil? Now why we didn't use attach to enter into that container? Okay, good. Now Ajinkya is asking, is it possible to set alias to Docker ID for convenience? You mean the container ID? Do you mean container ID, Ajinkya? Yes. Okay, actually, uh, Docker automatically gives a name for the container, like gracious caution. This is the name that alias that Docker gave for this particular container. But you can give your own name also. Like I just terminated the container. So if you do Docker ps, you can see no other container is running. Now let me create one Ubuntu instance, and while creating that, if I give like minus minus name, say my test Ubuntu, if I do like this, and if you go to this docker ps, you can see the name of that container is given as the name that I specified in here, this using minus minus name flag. This is how you can create alias for your container. Is it clear, Ajinkya? Okay, good. So Shreyas is asking, what is the difference between run and exec? Shreyas, run is used to create containers, whereas exec is used to enter into already running containers. Okay. Now Pramod is asking, in Ubuntu attach provide terminal, why don't in Nginx attach provide terminal? That is because when we executed docker run minus ti, when we executed docker run minus ti for Ubuntu trustee, you got terminal. But when you executed docker run for Nginx, you got terminal with you didn't get your terminal back, right? So that is the thing that will happen. Like attach will attach you back to the process ID one, like PID one. But whereas if you use exec, it will be creating a new process. Is it clear, Pramod? So Vivek is asking, now on top of this container, can we do Nginx web server? Can we run Nginx web server? You mean inside this Ubuntu? That is what you meant, Vivek? Yes, you can install your own software in this one. But since we have an Nginx official container available, image available, we will be using that. And that is why we use the Nginx container. Sorry, Nginx image. Okay. Now Bhushan wants me to repeat alias. Okay, so Sadish is saying after creating Ubuntu container, why can't we see Nginx in process? See, Sadish, this is an entirely different container. This is just an Ubuntu container. So Vivek is asking, so that image contains an OS and on top of that Nginx. Exactly, Vivek. So all those things that image will take care of. You don't have to worry about that one. Okay, so next session when we see a bit more detail, some advanced topics in Docker, at that time it will be more clear to you. Okay. Now let me answer Poshan's question. Let me explain alias once again. Now, Now, okay, let me exit from this one. Okay, so I'll execute docker ps. There is no content running. Sadish asking, have we exited engines container? Yes, Sadish, we exited. Okay, now let me explain to you about the alias. Okay, now if I execute this command, like if I execute this command, if I create a new container from my Ubuntu trusty image, if I execute simply, if I execute, it will create one container and it will automatically give one random name. Docker will give one random name along with container ID. It will give one unique random name for that container. Okay, so now this name for the container is not in your control. You don't have control over this name that Docker gives automatically. But what you can do is you can specify your own name for the container. For that, what you can do is I'll exit from this okay, no, I'll just use control PQ to exit out. Now the container is running. Okay, the container is running. Now, what if I want to create a new container with my own name? So what I can do is I can use this minus name flag and give the name that I want, like my test Ubuntu container 2, Ubuntu 2. Okay, here I gave a new name, and when I execute, and if you go to Docker PS again, you can see the name. Instead of Docker giving a random name, I have specified that I want to use this particular name for my container, and Docker accepted my request and it created a container with that name. Is it clear, Sadish? Is it clear, this alias? Is it clear to you? Okay, good. Now let's exit from, and one more thing I want to tell you. In the beginning, let me see. Okay, no, I'll show you at the end. So please remind me to do that. Okay, just remind me to show you layers at the end if I forget. Okay. Now there are some questions. Shreyas is asking, engines and Ubuntu Trusty both are images, right? Yes, Shreyas, both are images. So Akhil is asking, if we power off from inside container, will it stop container? Akhil, actually, this is only for terminal-based access. So you will only get you won't be getting any user interface. GUI you won't get. So there is, you can only power off from via the terminal. Okay, so if you exit PAD1, that means your container will be exited. Otherwise, your container will still be running. That is what you need to understand about exiting. So Pramod is asking, so instead of container ID, can we use alias in comments? Exactly. Yes, Pramod, we can do that. Sadish is asking, can we create container inside a container? Actually, Sadish, we can, but you won't be doing that one, because see, the advantage of having container is to have independent systems. So in order to have a great container, you will have to first install Docker inside the container and then create container inside them. But that is difficult. But we'll see a version of that in one of our tool set. When we see one of our tools at that time, you will see a version of that one. Okay. So Ajinkya is asking, please demonstrate if it is valid to do Docker attach my test Ubuntu to. Actually, I terminated from that my test Ubuntu. Is it okay if I show you using this one? It's optimistic hover. Is it okay if I execute that and show you, Ajinkya? Okay. Now Ajinkya and Sadish have the Sadish and no, Pramod have the same question. So let me show you. Instead of container ID, I can use this name also to and you enter. Like if I do Docker attach, instead of container ID, I can use this name or alias, and I am inside that container now. Is it clear? So container ID and names are unique. Container names are unique, and you can use those interchangeably. So Bhushan is asking, can we copy content from one container to another container? Bhushan, that we'll see in the upcoming session. Like we'll be seeing it in a short time. Okay. So I exited from now. No containers are running. Now let's create a new container, like new Nginx container. Docker run -d Nginx. Okay. Now as you know, as I told you, Nginx is a web server, right? So for web server, we need ports. Like by default, port 80 will be used by HTTP, and we'll need ports. So now you have that port. You have the web server running in your Nginx container. Then how will you browse that? How will you access that web server from your host machine? For that, you will have to do port mapping. Okay, so port mapping, what you have to do is you have to use the flag -p. Okay, when you create a container, you can use the flag -p to port your host map with Nginx Nginx port. Okay, with your container. So if I execute this one now, one container is created. If I do docker ps, here you can see this the container is running, and you can see under ports. See, one port mapping is already there, which means if I execute like port 32768 of my host machine is now mapped to port 80 of that container. So now if I want to access this particular web server from my host machine, what I can do is I can copy this. You can copy this and I can browse it. Now see, this Nginx page is being served from within that container, from within our container. Is it clear? Also, if you execute the command docker port followed by the container ID or the container name, you'll see the ports that are mapped, and you'll be able to get the list of ports mapped. Okay, so now if I want to, if I have using this port, I have now access to the web server. That means now this particular container acts as a web server service. So we have a microservice running as a container for web service, for web server. That is what we did now. Vivek is asking, how can we change the port? Vivek, we'll come to that. Okay, now is it clear that we can use this port mapping, right? Now what I'll do is I'll just terminate that container, docker rm. I'll stop and terminate, remove that container. Now okay, there are some questions now. Vivek asked, how can we change the port, right? We'll see that first. So Sadesh is asking, so we don't require public IP. Sadesh, if you want to access the container, access that particular container from outside your network, from via the internet, then you should need one IP which is browser, which is accessible via the internet. Okay, but if you don't want, this is for your, if it is for your local test environment, then you can you don't need to worry about those things. Okay, Vivek wants me to explain this once again. Okay, Vivek, when I execute docker run -d -p followed by the image name, then what it did is it created a container with that Nginx image, and it assigned one random port. It automatically assigned one port mapping. So port 80, since it is needed for web service, it was exposed by that particular container, but we had no option to access it from our host machine. So when I used this -p flag, what it did is it ported, it mapped my host machine's 32768 port number to port 80 within that container. Okay, now Shreyas is asking, is Docker CLI case sensitive? There are some things that are case sensitive, but this -p and all, it's not case sensitive. Okay, now if I want to specify my own port ID, then port number, then what you can do is you can execute the command docker run -d, then -p followed by the port number that you want to use. Like if I want to use 7444 as of my host IP to be ported mapped with port 80 of the container, then I can use like this. Now if I execute docker ps, I can see this is the port ID that is mapping, that is being mapped. So now if I run this one, you can see it is being served from that particular container. This is how you can give our own port ID. Vivek is asking which is on top of OS. which is using a port. Vivek, I'm not sure. Vivek something just created a container which has web server and which is using a port. Where is which is using a port? Actually, see, now when we executed this one, just created a container which is running a web server and which is exposing a port 80, exposing port 80. So we are connecting from our local machine. We are connecting local machines port 7444 with port 80 of that container, the exposed port of that container, so that we can access this from our local machine and get the service from our host machine. Okay, so Akhil is asking 00 is default IP it takes. No, 00 is my local machine. You can also use like local host also you can use and you'll get the same thing. 00 is for the local host, default local host IP address. So Vivek is asking how is it microservice then? See Vivek, now we have one container which is only used to serve act as a web server. So that is a microservice. So it is a web server service now. So that is one service, right? So we have what we have done is like if you have a database, then you will have another container with database service. That is why I mentioned that this is now a microservice. Okay. Sadish is asking how we bind multiple ports. Sadish, if you have multiple ports, then if you execute this -p, if you execute this -p command, it will automatically assign all the exposed ports. Like if that container is exposing say port 40 and 443, which is HTTPS. Sorry, port 80 and port 443, which is for HTTPS. Then if you execute this -p, then automatically two ports will be mapped, one to port 80 of the container and one to port 443 of the container. You don't have to worry about them. So basically in production you will be using this -p because you don't want to specify your own port numbers when you are in production. Docker will automatically look for some port IPs, port numbers which are not already used and use that one. Okay, is it clear, Sadish? Okay, good. Now as you can see, there is one container using the same port. So if I execute the same thing, if I want to use the same port, if I execute, it will show you the error as well. Like, see, it is saying that port is already allocated. This is the error that you get. That is the reason why we will use -p always in production. Okay, now I want to show you, like, now let me enter into that container. I'm going to enter into that container. Can anyone tell me how will I enter into this container? Docker, which command will I use to enter into the terminal? I want terminal access to that container. Which command will I use? Can anyone tell me? Pramod is asking attach. No, Pramod. We are saying exec. Yes, exec bash is what we are going to use. Actually saying exactly. Pramod is asking, so instead of container ready, can we use alias in comments? Yes, Pramod, that is what I showed you earlier. We can use that. Okay, so I'll use docker exec -ta followed by this container name and then bash. So now I am inside my container. Okay, so for Nginx, the default path, like when you use a Nginx web server, when you create an Nginx web server, the default path of the file that you are browsing is in this one, usr share nginx html folder. Here you will see one index.html, and this is the file that you are seeing here that is being served. So if I'll just copy this. If I cat the content of that index.html, see, this is the content of my index.html. That is what is being displayed here. Okay, so let's edit that file. Let me edit that file. Sudo nano, this one index.html. Okay, so sudo is not required. Oh, nano is also not there. Okay, what I can do is I'll show you mapping first. Okay, so let me do. I'll automatically do that. Okay, so hello, it is me. Okay, Now I'm going to change that, change the content index.html. Okay, now cat, if I do index.html, the content of the index.html in that container is changed from this to this. Okay, now if I come here and I refresh the page, you can see that is the page that is getting served. Is it clear? Okay, so Vivek is asking where are the binaries of this web server. Those binaries for the web server are there in that container. You don't have to worry about that. That image will take care of that. When Docker creates the container from that image, it already took care of that one. You don't have to worry about those things at all. Okay, now I'll exit from this one. I'll also terminate this particular container. Docker remove myself. Okay. So Ajinkya is saying, so there is no need to reload services. No, unless you change the configuration of engine's configuration inside your container, you don't have to do that. This is just a static page. We just change the content. At that time, there is no need for reload. But if you are changing the configuration of Nginx inside this one, then you will have to reload. So Akhil is asking, can we bind port 80 of container to 80 of host? If port 80 of your host is not already being used, then you can. But please don't do that because port 80 it is reserved for your host web machine. So if you have another local host web server running in your local machine, then it will crash. Okay, so Vinod is asking, how can we use nano or any command which are not in container? Then what you can do is you can install the nano command using apt-get, or you can see which is the base image, and you can install that. We will see in the upcoming session, or tomorrow session we will see that one. Okay. Okay, now I'll show you something called volumes. Like now, we saw, like someone asked, like how will we share particular files, content from one container to another, right? For that, we'll be using volumes. Okay, so now as you can see, there is the folder current directory is empty. So I'm going to create a new folder called mkdir DevOps team. Okay, so now I have one folder in my local machine. So Vivek is asking, please answer my query. Vivek, what is your question? Can we use CMD from base machine? Is that what you asked? I didn't understand. What do you mean by can we use CMD from base machine? Can you please elaborate on that question? Okay, so meanwhile, let me proceed. So Vivek is asking, where is the configuration files? You mean the Nginx configuration file? Is that what you're talking about? That is within the container. See, you don't have anything related to that Nginx web server or that particular service in your local machine. Everything is within that container. Okay. Vivek is asking, can we edit those? Of course, you can edit those. You can edit. You can change the configuration and all. You can do that. It is just like a virtual machine, and you can do whatever that you can do with a virtual machine inside that container. Okay. Now let me create a new machine. Docker run -d. I'll use this port. You can use this together also, like -d space -p. Instead of that, you can use like -dp. Then in order to map the current volume, what I'm going to do is I'm going to map this particular folder, this particular DevOps team folder that I created at the moment just now, inside this container as a volume. For that, I'll use the flag -v followed by the full path of the of my folder, which is this DevOps team. Okay, pwd will take the current path. This one I'll take. This is my host. Now next I'm going to tell Docker where I want to mount inside this container. For that, I'll use /usr/ I'll use the nginx home folder, nginx default folder, to map this folder. Now this folder will be mapped like this path will be mapped to this folder inside my container. Okay, now my container is running. So if you do docker ps, I can see the container is running. It has assigned one port, which is this. This is a port. Let me try browsing the port. See, it is giving 403 because there is no index.html at the moment. So let me SSH into that one first. Sorry, let me enter into that thing first. For that, I'll use docker exec -ti to enter into the container. Sorry, bash. Okay, now I'll check whether there is anything in this folder. See, as you can see, index.html is not there in that particular folder. Fritz is asking what is PWD. PWD is to get the person working directory. You have to give the full path. Instead of typing the full path, I use this command. Okay, now as you can see, index.html is empty. Okay, now what it did is, if you do df inside this container, you can see this one, this particular thing, it is mounted. So now what it is doing is, my present folder, which is this ls from this DevOps team from my local machine, is mounted inside this particular container in this path. Okay, now I'm going to create an index.html. Like, I'll cd into this particular folder in my local machine, and I'm going to create an index.html. So this is the index file created from my local host machine. Okay, so here I'll use index.html. Okay, now if you do ls, I have one index.html. Now inside my container, now this is inside my container, right? Here if I do ls slash user this folder, you can see that index.html is coming now. And if you want to check the content, slash index.html, if you do, see, this is the content. Now whatever, when you create a new file or when you edit a file in your local machine in this particular location, it will automatically be available for you within that container. Now if you browse this web server, you will get that file. Is it clear? Now if I create a new file with inside in that particular location inside the container, let's create a new file. Like created this file from within the container. Okay, so say container dot html. Okay, so now if I do ls, sorry, ls and this one. Okay, so this is because of this thing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll use a shorter thing. So created from container. Okay, so here I'll use this particular. Okay, I didn't give this path, that is why I didn't get that. So container dot html. Okay, now if I do ls, sorry, ls that particular path, you can see that container dot html is created. So Vivek is asking, this is like a shared mode. Exactly, Vivek. Okay, so now I'll get the content of that one. So container.html, see, created from containers there. Now this is my local machine, right? So here if I do ls now, you will see that container.html file inside my local machine. So now you have a backup of the container within your terminal, within your container in your local machine. Now you can map this particular folder to any other container, and you will have the same content in that container. This is how you can share content between containers. Is it clear? Now if I want to browse this particular file, I can use slash container.html. You can see that particular file is being served. Is it clear? Any doubt till this point? Okay, Akhil is asking, can you show mapping the folder into another container? Vivek is asking, can you please show this once again? Okay, Vivek, what I'll do is I'll create a new container. Okay, now I am going to exiting this container, but this container is still running. You can execute docker ps. You can see the container is still running. What I am doing is I am going to create a new container. Okay, so I am going to create new container, new Nginx container, and I'm going to map the same folder inside that container. Okay, so Vivek, this is the command that we used to create the container using -v. Now what I did is I created a new fresh Nginx container but mapped the same folder. So if I do docker ps, you can see two containers are running. First one is using this 32769 port, and second one is using this 32770 port. Okay, now if I browse the second container, you will see the index.html that we created earlier is being served from that container as well. If I do here, there also it is serving the same index.html file. Is it clear now, Akhil? Vivek, is the command clear to you? Virendra is asking, don't we need to make an entry in fstab for permanent use of this particular volume given to container? Virendra, you don't have to worry about those things at all. Docker will take care of that one. That is why Docker is very easy. Now see, can you just imagine how difficult it will be for you to do these things if you are doing it manually? Can you imagine that? And can you imagine like how easier Docker makes it for you? That is the advantage of using Docker. That is why Docker is so popular and so powerful. Okay, so any doubt in the topics that we covered till now? Anyone? Okay, good. Now someone asked like how to get the log in the case of Docker, right? So I'm going to show you how we can do that. And before that, Satyanarayan asking what is the difference between exec minus TA and attach. Satyanarayan, as I mentioned, attach is used to attach to the PAD1 of a running instance, sorry, running container. But exec minus TA is to enter into a running container by creating a new process. Okay, attach it will automatically attach to the PAD1, but exec will create a new process, and using that process we will enter into the container. Is it clear? Satyan is asking, is that privileges are same for both? Yes, the privileges are same, Satyanarayan. But if the PAD1 has more privileges, then of course attach will have more privileges. But as you can see, if PAD1 is a daemon, then you won't have your terminal access back if you are using attach. So in those cases, you will have to use exec minus TA. So Akhil is asking, we can also share folder of one container to another without involving host folder. Akhil, for that, what you have to do is you have to make that container, that folder into a volume, and it should be accessible from outside, all those things. But the best thing that you have to do is to use host folder, sharing host folder. Okay, now someone, okay, within there's one more doubt, like with Nginx, there will not bash embedded in it as compared to Ubuntu Trusty. Bash process, like bash command is available, but that is not PAD1. PAD1 is the Nginx command. That is why attach is going to that PAD1. If PAD1 was slash user slash bin or bash command, then if you execute attach, it will go to bash. Okay. Now, since Nginx is a server and needs a daemon running, the PAD1 for that particular container, image container created from that image is Nginx. Okay. Now let me show you how to see logs. So I'll be using this the second container that we created. So in order to see logs of a container, what you can do is you can execute the command docker logs followed by the container ID or the container name. So now you can see the logs that are generated by that within that container. You will be able to see here. Okay, so if you want to tail that log, like if you want to keep on seeing that log, what you can do is you can use the command logs minus f followed by that container ID, and now you'll have live access to that log of that container. Now let me browse this once again. I browse this once again. See, an entry to that one has already been created. If I browse once again, one more entry will come. See, this is the log. So now we are seeing the log of that container. Okay, now one more thing I want to show you is to see the details of a container. So if you execute the command docker inspect followed by the container ID or the container name, then you will see all the details that are related to that container. You can see when it was created, and someone asked where the details or this particular things are sold. So you can see all those paths on where everything is stored, all those temporary paths and all those things, even mounts, what is the folder that is being mounted and where it is mounted, all those things you will be able to see in this one using docker inspect. Here you can see the IP address assigned for this particular container is 172.17.0.13 like that. So all these things you will be able to see. So Veg is saying Veg asked that. Okay, Veg, see, this is how you can see those things. Okay, now now this is a huge one, right? So if you use this command using but pipe less, then you'll see page by page. You'll be able to enter and see all the things. Okay. Now there is something else, like you can format this also. If you want to get a particular item, Achilles is asking if we give if config in host, it shows extra interface. No, actually it will have one extra interface for Docker, but not for each separate container. Okay, now if you want to get a particular item in this one, what you can do is you can execute docker inspect and you can use the flag -- format, and here you can use like this. Like if you want to get, say, mounts, if you want to get this mounts data, if you only want to get this mounts data, then what you can do is you can copy this and you can execute like mount this followed by the container name. Sorry, followed by the container name. So it, oh, okay, I didn't terminate that one. Okay, sorry. This one I had to close this bracket. Okay, it should be dot mount. This is in JSON format. Okay, so you have to use dot mounts, not mounts. See, you will get the output of that mounts. So there is one thing called mounts. See, mounts binds you are getting this mounts section. The source you are getting of that one. Now we will see more about Docker inspect in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so Rashmi is asking, can we use Git in the container? Yes, Rashmi, if you have on Git repository in your local machine, then you can mount that repository within the container and then you will be able to access the data inside the container. But if you want to use Git commands inside the container, then you will have to install Git, or you have to use an image where Git is pre-installed. Okay. Now coming back to our presentation, most of these commands we saw, remaining commands we will show. Like you can use docker pause to pause a container, and in order to restart from the pause state, you can use start. Sorry, you can use unpause. Then you can start and stop containers using docker this. Then you can see the volumes that are there in using docker volume. That also we'll see in the next class. Remaining things we already saw. Then Docker Hub, this I already showed you. Like Docker Hub is a cloud-based registry service which allows you to link to code repository. Like that also we'll see in detail during the next class. I showed you this Docker stage in the next. Then features of Docker Hub are image repositories. Like you can find and pull images from community and official libraries and manage, push to pull. All those things are possible with Docker Hub. Then automated builds, you can automatically create new builds based on changes in docker file or code repository. We'll see about this one when we see docker file. That is what we'll be seeing in the next class. Then webhooks, to automate this, to enable this automated builds, you will need webhooks. then organization to create work groups inside this Docker Hub. Then it also provides GitHub and Bitbucket integration. So if you have GitHub or Bitbucket account, then you will be integrate that with your Docker Hub account. Okay, this Docker pull we saw, then Docker run. We saw how to exit from a container without exiting PAD1, exit from terminal. Then running multiple containers we saw. Then ports, port mapping, all these things we saw. So mapping a host folder we saw, then logs we saw, inspect we saw. These are the various options, like these are the various options like you can use this format, minus format flag. These are various ways in which you can use. Okay, so that's it for today's session. So as homework, please, this is, as I mentioned in the beginning of at the beginning of the class, this is a very important topic in your DevOps journey. So please go through this video multiple times. You should have good understanding of Docker, because the upcoming sessions also will be using Docker extensively. So please go through this video once again and try it out, and if you have any doubt, please email me and I'll get back to you. Okay, and please do the homework. Whatever I executed, that should also, that you should do as homework, and all these things. Okay, then you should try to create like you should try to create a container, web service container, and try to host your own web page and all. Then Akhil is asking, is there file for Docker as Vagrant? Akhil, when we are creating our own images, at that time you'll need file like in Vagrant. But for creating containers, you don't need that one. If you want to create custom images, then at that time you'll need that. That is what we'll be seeing in the next class. Okay, this means asking, is it required to create virtual machine at VirtualBox? No, if you are using Docker, then it has nothing to do with VirtualBox. These are containers. It has nothing to do with VirtualBox at all. So 9 is asking, can you cover Docker storage setup in next session? 9 we'll be touching up Docker volumes in Docker, but other than that, we won't be going in depth, because even though we will be taking 2 sessions, we won't be able to cover the highly advanced Docker, but we'll make sure that you have a very good understanding of Docker. Okay, so that's it, Adrian. So is there any doubt in the topics that we covered today? Anyone? Any other doubt that you have that you want me to clarify? Rashmi is asking, do we have sessions on next weekend, or is it enough? Rashmi, as far as I am concerned, as of now, I don't have any intimation regarding an off for the next week, but for now, we'll say that we have session during the next weekend. But if there is any change in that one, you'll get an email from Collabra. Okay. So if you don't have any doubt, we'll wind up today's session. So hope you understood what are the topic that we covered today. This is a very important topic, so please go through the videos multiple times and ask questions. Okay, so that's it, everyone. Have a nice week ahead, and have a good night or good morning to you all, based on from where you're joining. Okay, bye. Have a nice day.